Hello, I'm Robert, and welcome to Robert's Guitars and Gear. Today we are going to talk about how to find a guitar that fits your body. Maybe you are a young person still with smaller hands. Maybe you're an older player like I am that's had hand surgeries, elbow surgeries, shoulder surgeries, and you're just not so flexible anymore. How do you find a guitar that fits you? What are the key factors? Well, I have spent the last 4 years cycling through guitars, measuring them, trying them to answer these questions. And I think I have settled on some key factors that might help you. So let's take a careful look. The first one, scale length, is the distance from the nut to the bridge. So this is a Fender, this is a Stratocaster. And Fender's famous because amongst the major guitar brands, they have the longest scale length. The Stratocaster, the Telecaster, Jazzmaster, they have a 25.5-inch scale length. Well, what does that mean? And how does that affect your comfort in your playing? Now, before I go too far with this, I want to say everything I'm talking about here is in general terms. It's from my experience. All of these things can be different for you, can change for you. For example, as you learn to play, your hands literally stretch. And the distance on a fretboard that I can cover with my hands is astonishingly different than when I started. On the other hand, when I had carpal tunnel surgery a few months ago, I was back to nowhere. So your results may vary, but these are some general principles that give you something to look at when you're looking at guitars. Second thing I would say is, if you possibly can, please go to your local music store. Try things out. Tell them what you're after. They'll show you options. You can put your hands on them. If that's not really feasible for you, I've had good experience at Sweetwater with my sales engineer, just getting information. Fantastic, but not as good as putting your hands on the guitars. So let's get started. Let's start on scale length. Scale length in practice is going to affect just how far a reach you can have on a fretboard. So here you can see that I can fret the first fret and really the fourth. I can sort of sneak into the fifth. Now, maybe you're just playing open chords. Doesn't matter that much. It's just something that you have to decide. How is important? What do you want to play? What's that mean? If I switch guitars, again, this is a 25.5-inch scale. The opposite end of the mainstream, still in the Fender family, are the Fender offsets with a 24-inch scale. And I'll show you this. So here is the beautiful Fender Player Jaguar, tremendous guitar. Now remember, on the Stratocaster, I could just really get slightly past the fourth fret. Now, look at this. On a 24-inch scale, it's fundamentally up here, up the neck, or down the neck, a full 5 frets. So again, if that's important to your playing, if you want to play things that demand that, that's going to make a big difference. And if you're not, maybe it doesn't. The other brands out there, again, Gibsons and Epiphones, you're talking about a 24 and 3/4 inch scale. It's a little bit in between, but really closer to this. PRS, they have some 24.594, famous, they're McCarty series, but most of them are 25.0, so again, in between. So when it comes to scale length, you just have to decide how important is it to you to play what you want to play, and how does the guitar feel. So that's the first factor. The second factor, and I think the most important for me in your guitar comfort, is going to be the circumference of the neck, literally the length all the way around. Why? Because when you're doing anything on the fretboard, you're getting your hand around the neck. And so if you have smaller hands, stiffer hands, arthritic hands, that circumference is going to make a tremendous difference. I actually did a video just on the factors involved with hand size and guitars. But the problem we have with the circumference is it's not published. So you've got some measurements that are published that will give you a hint about the circumference of the neck. So the first thing you can look at is the nut width. So here's the nut, literally the nut width. You'll see on many fenders, for example, that's a 1.65 inches or 42 millimeters. On some of the Squires, you'll see this even less. And 1.62, you see quite narrow. Now, obviously, if you have larger hands, your concern there is simply having enough space to fit your hands on this fretboard. However, for a person with smaller hands, that is a very, very important measurement, not exclusive. I'll get to that in a minute. The second thing that you will sometimes see measured is the thickness of the fretboard or the neck. And they'll do it usually at the first fret and down at the 12th. And that's going to give you a very good indication of, when you put those two together, the circumference and how easy it's going to be to get your hand all over this fretboard. So if you're a smaller hand player, you're really looking for this first fret to be about 0.8 of an inch or less. On this guitar, 0.81, and it works okay because it's got that narrow nut width. If you get into a thicker nut, like a Gibson, where you're at a 1.67, 1.69, then this becomes quite important. I have an Epiphone with a Gibson slim taper neck, for example, and it's a 1.69, and this is 0.81, and it's okay. It is not any better than okay for my smaller hands, but as you get up the neck, it's just really hard. Even a 0.91 or more up the neck, if you have small or stiff hands, can be hard for you. So I've actually taken that Epiphone and shaved the neck down a little bit just so I can get on that borderline of playing. So great options in the smaller hands for the circumference. Again, many fenders with that 1.65 inch nut width. This one is a 0.82, and then down here at the 12th, 0.87. But with that narrow nut width, that circumference is comfortable all the way. Now, I'll show you another option here. I have a D'Angelico Deluxe Atlantic. Now, it's a 1.69 nut width, which again is the wider nut in the industry, so wider neck. But at this first fret, 0.78 of an inch. And it's only going up to 0.87 at the 12th. Completely comfortable for me. Really, really fast and good. I have a Schecter Solo 2 Custom I'll show in a minute. Same story. So you can have a slightly wider nut if you have a slightly thinner neck, and you're good to go. So a very important factor. Again, you know this. You'll know it when you feel it. When I play a guitar with a thicker neck, when we're getting into the 1.69 and the 0.83 of an inch, it's just, you feel it. And then you get up here and you're really straining. So that's why it's so important to try these, and you'll find what dimensions really work for you. So that's the second factor, the neck circumference. Let's talk about the last factor. The last factor, and one I think is extremely important, especially for newer players, is what I call the reach. And how do I define that? The reach is fundamentally how much of the neck is outside the body. And in particular, how is that when you're in your playing position? So I'll start with the first option, which is you're standing. If you're standing, then what you're really interested in is how far is the nut from the shoulder strap button. Because, check me out here, in this case, I can reach way past the headstock. So every single place on this neck is comfortable for me. On this fender offset jag, it's really comfortable. A way to look at, you can quickly ascertain this in photos. What I do is look at the front strap button. Where does it line up on the fretboard? Here, the front strap button. If I'm standing, it's at the 14th. Now, if you're sitting, you're looking at the same kind of distance, but you're doing it from the waist, because this is going to be on your leg. And so then it's really a question of how far is it from where this is on your leg to out here where you're making open chords, for example. So the funny thing about these offsets is, as you can see, it's quite a longer reach if you're sitting. But if you're standing, this thing, I can reach anywhere on here in total comfort. Now let me show you the opposite extreme. Here is the Ibanez AR325, and just a great guitar in so many respects. I'll do a separate video on this. One's beautiful, feels great, but and this is true of many double cut guitars like this that are cut away on both sides of the neck. You see that the neck really attaches to the body right here at the edge of the body. So when I look at where the shoulder strap comes in, you can see that it is coming in at the 18th fret. So there is a tremendous reach if you're standing to get out here. Now, for many players, especially really experienced, good players, not a problem. And I don't have a problem with this. But in terms of comfort, this is a very noticeable impact. So for a newer player or somebody with issues, you might, when you're considering guitars, you might just check this for, where is, if you're going to play standing, where is that front shoulder strap relative to the fretboard? Now this one, if you look at where the waist is, down here, relative to the fretboard, sitting, it's a whole different ballgame. And this guitar is perfectly comfortable to play for me sitting. Again, it's a great guitar. So pay attention to that reach, try it, see what is significant to you, and run with it. Now I'm going to just bring this all to a close with what I think for me is a great option. I mentioned earlier this player jag, so comfortable. Just look at the bend in my shoulder getting here to the nut compared to being out here somewhere with that Ibanez. This is a great choice. Any Fender offset, Mustangs, the Jaguar with that short scale, even the potentially the Jazzmaster, that's a 25.5-inch scale. The only gotcha here is if I'm trying to play, up here, up the neck towards the body, just a little tight. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It's quite okay to do it, but you can get a little crammed because that 12th fret is actually inboard. Okay, so if you are lead playing and you're up here a lot, you have to try this and see what you think. Again, overall for an ergonomic guitar, these are fantastic. And then I'll show you kind of where I've settled. Let's see what you think. So putting this all together for me, and remember, everybody's body's different. Everybody's playing style, needs, all are different. So I got to try these things. But this is a Schecter Solo 2 Custom. I just got it. It is such a great guitar. But let's talk about the ergonomics. First of all, it's a 24 3/4 scale. And again, not a problem. Not a problem for me. I can still reach from the first into the 5th. Not quite as nicely as I can on the Jag, but it's not bad. Number 2, we've got 0.78, again to I believe 0.87 here at the 12th. Nice thin neck, can get my hands around it, no problem. The Les Paul style guitars, we come in, again, this is your 12th, 15th, 16th fret for reach to the shoulder button. It's quite okay. I am not, it's not quite as accessible as the Jag, but look at this. Here the 12th is outboard just a little, so I can get higher on the neck, not a problem. And really, you can play anywhere here. I don't feel like I'm reaching uncomfortably out here. I'm not crammed in here. So these are great, you might call them middle of the road, but if you can get a Les Paul configuration of guitar, but if you need the narrower, slimmer neck, it's a great option. Now, again, Gibson has the slim taper. For my hands, the slim taper is just, when I combine it with the 1.69 inch nut, just a little thick, especially out here. So what you can do is use a site like wildwood.com where they publish their measurements of every guitar for the neck thickness and find the thinnest. Or tell them, hey, get me a Les Paul with the thinnest neck you have. And you may find that that's perfectly okay. Again, Fenders are great. Those Fender offsets, is hard to go wrong. I love mine. That could be my guitar too. For me, this guitar seems to be a really great balance. So, friends, I hope this is helpful. I appreciate your watching. Appreciate support of my channel. Would love it if you could like and subscribe. And please leave in the comments if you have some observations about anything I said or your own observations about ergonomics. Would love to talk about it. Thanks so much. Take care.